Hey, this is The Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling, a Tony James podcast. And as always, the bells of justice are ringing. Today, I want to talk about WWE, the hypocrisy of it all. A lot of stuff's been going on lately, and some people are talking about it, some people are letting it go, and other people are getting it. We're going to quote Undertaker saying everybody gets what they get eventually, and he's right. A lot of people are going to get it, and I think he's in line as well. But before we get into that, hey, don't forget to follow me on Spotify at the Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. Follow me at YouTube at the Good, the Bad, the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. Check me out on Facebook at GBW Podcast. Click, follow, like, subscribe, leave comments, help me out. Whether I reach 5 or 500, I'm just happy to do it. I got a lot on my chest I want to get off. I want to talk about some stuff, pro wrestling. I'm a pro wrestling guy. I'm not a Netflix era guy, so I'll do my best to keep up. First thing I want to talk about, there's a lot of things going on right now. Jim Cornette's getting called out by his own people. I did a podcast recently on Tessa Blanchard and them yelling, calling her racist, pardon me, and her plowing through it, and she's sticking with it, and she's doing her thing. And Jim Cornette was talking about her ability in the ring. I find it interesting that we've got a select memory on who we like, who we don't like by what they say and what they do. But I'm with Jim Cornette on this until she's proven otherwise. This is TV era wrestling. This is TV era wrestling. So keep in mind that the modern wrestling is not about in-ring anymore. It's about personal life and digging up your past. So I guess the modern wrestling fan is going to call her racist to not get into the in-ring. Your old school guys are all about the in-ring because you didn't know about their personal life. Interesting concept, but Jim Cornette's taking it on the chin. One thing I'm really getting tired of already in the Netflix era, and this has been going on, I'm going to say for the past at least 5 to 7 years. There was a group of wrestlers that came in 2015. It was that really good surgeon of Netflix era, or not Netflix, I'm sorry, NXT wrestling. And then, of course, AEW had a brief stint of excellence. And then now it's common practice, but can we be original? Do we have to take other people's stuff and put our name on it? Like Kevin Owens being cute at the Royal Rumble with his shirts. And can you not be original? I mean, that just irritates me, and I'm going to get into that here. I've got something I definitely want to share with you. But the first piece of hypocrisy I want to talk about is age. Now that we're in the officially in the Netflix era, we know in TV you can go until you're dusty and old, as CM Punk likes to say. But in the day, if you remember back at WrestleMania 19, Triple H was giving Hogan all kinds of crap because of his age. Before that, when the older group, Savage and them, turned 40, in the WCW, you had Guerrero and Benoit and all those people pissing around, getting upset. Let us young guys have a shot. Let us young guys have a shot. Let me give you some numbers. Edge, 50. Styles, 47. Rock, 52. Cena, 47. Triple H went on into his late 40s. Finn Balor, I love Finn Balor. He's in his 40s. Look at all these people wrestling. Now it's okay. Now it's okay to be old and wrestle. Even though they give Chris Jericho crap, now it's okay to be old and wrestle. But back in the day when these guys were young, Shawn Michaels, way back at WrestleMania 9, started throwing around the dinosaur statement because he was just too cool for school. And it started back then, them forgetting that they're going to age as well, but them knowing they have control. And this backstage politics that a lot of these old guys get crap for. It's okay if HBK and Triple H and everybody else does it or did it. Undertaker, he's another one we're going to talk about. locked into the clicks, locked into people doing what they tell them to do, or you don't get a push. But that's okay. But you've got a select few now that take it on the chin every time you mention their name, just because. Speaking of John Cena, I'd like to bring up something about John Cena here. I think I've got it posted on the screen for you. I'm going to look it up on my own screen so I can read it to you. I found this interesting. When we were young, I believe that's what it says. Oh, I do apologize. When we were young, we grew up hearing words like Big Match John and Golden Shovel. Now I realize how inaccurate that is. He was simply made to be the face and had to rack up wins naturally. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the face. And even so, this guy ate countless pins and was on the losing end of some of the biggest matches in history during his prime, like RVD in 2006, Punk in 11, Rock in 12, Brock in 14, WrestleMania main event against The Miz. Realistically, guys like Riley, Sandow, and Rusev were never that good to be going over Super Cena. He always put over the ones who truly deserved it and buried the rest. And that's the truth of it. I wouldn't say buried. That's the thing. Hogan buried people and wouldn't give them a shot. Vince McMahon was the promoter. Vince McMahon wanted Hulk Hogan to hold the belt for 4 years. He fed people to Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan had to make it work. Bruno Sammartino was the champ for 7.5, 8 years. He was the champ. He went over. He didn't bury anybody. That's what the promoter wanted. WCW, same thing. So the point is, that's who they won over. Now, we do know that there was people like HBK, Politic, and Bret Hart, Triple H on the other side in WCW, Ric Flair. I mean, Ric Flair, 16-time champion. When they were booking, when they had the ear of Vince McMahon, whoever it was, okay, fine. When you're the top and you have some say and the promoters give you say on what you want to do, once again, that's the business, right? And now that it's TV business, you are just a character now. You are just a character. You're out there showing everybody you're not a heel. Like at the Royal Rumble, what's her name? The women's U.S. champion. Isn't she supposed to be a heel? But yes, she's hugging kids and giving them WrestleMania tickets. So you're just a character. So this whole burying stuff I'm sick of hearing about this guy buried this guy got buried. No, if the promoter wanted Jake the Snake Roberts to beat Hulk Hogan for the heavyweight title, the promoter would have booked it. Bottom line. And by the way, Hogan did put Sting over in Starrcade 97. He submitted to the Scorpion Deathlock. So whatever. The new stuff coming out. Cody Rhodes is the champ, and he will be the champ until they decide he's not the champ. Okay, so now all of a sudden everybody's coming to Cena's defense when back in the day they couldn't stand him. Once again, it's wherever the wind's blowing. Wherever the wind's blowing nowadays with fans. And also, you know who runs that? The current roster members. When they tell you who they like, all of a sudden, that person's cool. If we're going to take the Netflix approach and say it's about your personal life, not your in-ring, then why are people backing Macho Man Randy Savage? Andre has a jaded past when it comes to race. Are we going to dig that deep and pull those guys up? Because those guys talk about them all holistically. Interesting to think about. Okay, this brings me to my next point. I've been ringing this bell for a long time. This really irritates me. If you go back to some of my previous podcasts about tradition versus modern, or now Netflix, I talk about this. And I called it, at some point, there's going to be a consistency of people just going back through the archives, taking matches and not taking spots or gear, which they do now. They take spots, they take gear, they go in and look exactly like the people they loved. Now they're doing matches move for move. And now they're taking ideas that they're recycling, literally, as you can see here. CM Punk fans should throw toilet paper at Dominic Mysterio because he's the blanks, whatever it says there. AEW Dynamite literally a month ago throwing toilet paper in. CM Punk, I'm going to tell you right now, boy, this is the pipe bomb maker, right? This is the guy that's supposed to save wrestling. We had to have him back. Well, what has he done? What has he done? Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a look at a clip and see what he's done.
Man, we need to start calling AEW cosplay wrestling. Because why was the FTR match a carbon copy of Owen Hart versus Bret Hart? And then they cosplayed Chris Benoit? Like, why would you cosplay Chris Benoit? And then it's like CM Punk cosplay another Bret Hart match. He has cosplayed 2 Bret Hart matches. It's like, what's going on here, man? It's like, look, there's a difference between copying somebody and just, dude, you are stealing everything that they worked on. It's the same thing as remaking a song. It's like, bruh, you can make it good, but you're not going to make that song better. Be your own man, make your own matches, make your own legacy. Stop recreating matches. This ain't fucking Halloween.
Oh, but it is Halloween and it's cosplay. And he talks about CM Punk, and you've been seeing that, and that's been seeping into the WWE as well with your Kevin Owens and your Sami Zayns and everybody else. Heaven forbid they actually come up with their own stuff, but they do have a producer in the back. So are they even wrestlers anymore? No. They're gymnasts who work out at a trampoline place, and then they learn how to be on TV. That's what they are. Speaking of that, sometimes in life things come back. I'm not going to show you the clip. Undertaker had some guy on, Dangerous Dan Dingler or whatever his name was. I don't know who he is, but him and the guy that helps Undertaker run his podcast all had a good chew in making fun of Hogan, being booed and stuff that Hogan said and laughing about him. And we all know that Undertaker has an axe to grind. He cannot get over. He cannot get over Survivor Series 91. That is a monkey on his back that he is never going to let go. Hogan is so over on him on that, which there is a clip out there from Hogan's old website when he's sitting in his memorabilia room and he shows an x-ray of his neck. And he talks about what happened that night. I truly believe 2 things. Hogan did go to the hospital because we know, and he did feel he was hurt. And I think Hogan listens to everybody talk, and all you got to do is go to the Pat McAfee and listen to what he says. Hogan is so strategic in what he says, and he is over on so many people. And I'm going to talk about the one guy that he's just got control over. But talking about sometimes in life things come back. Well, yeah, let's talk about the Hall of Fame, Undertaker. Your wife's in now. I was reading online, they were saying, oh, she's so deserving, all the great matches. What great matches? She's in because she's Undertaker's wife, and now he's got clout, he can pull some strings. Undertaker, you're right. Things do come back in life, and guess what? They're going to come back on you. I thought you were a man who showed grace. You're a man of God. But you, oh, yeah, that's right. Envy, greed, gluttony, it's all coming back, isn't it, Undertaker? If you're really what you say you are, reach out to Hogan. Have a talk with him. Hey, what happened that night? Why are you saying these things? This and that, whatever no, because that's too much. You do just enough to be who you think you are, but in the end, you always are who you are, and that's the Undertaker, and we know that, don't we? So I just find it interesting that any chance he gets to slide on him, and let's face it, to Hogan saying, I slammed the 700-pound giant. Who cares how much Andre weighed? It sounds better when he says 700. Those things that And then Undertaker saying that, he was a politicker in the back. Oh, do we got a clip today that exposes the Undertaker, but you really got to listen to what is being said. Undertaker was just as political, if not more, along with his other buddies. There were two groups in the 90s, the Clique and Undertaker's group, because Undertaker was the guy who ran the stupid wrestlers court. So don't give me the whole politicking in the back. It's going to come back and get you. You're right. It is going to come back to get you. And I got a little clip I'd like to play from Bubba Ray Dudley. Let's take a listen to this.
And at the end of the show, me and Hulk got really close. We got uncomfortably close. And I'm a big believer in you never get too close to the babyface, because if you're close enough for him to grab you, he should.
Very good knowledge.
And I'm not trying to leave Hulk in a bad spot. I just screwed over his daughter, his best friend.
That's too close.
That's too close. So we get a little close, and I did what the heel young boy should do. No, and back down. Get in the back.
Oh boy.
Yes, sir. Don't you ever back down from me again. Do you understand why? And I was like, on this one, no, I don't. He goes, I'm here to make you. Because you hear stories about Hulk being very much about Hulk. And now he's saying something to you where it's the complete opposite. There was no selfishness involved in this.
Okay, I play that for a couple of reasons, but you only can believe half of what you hear. Here's the thing. Bobby Heenan said it best. The people who are pissed at Hogan are the ones that didn't get to make money with him because they couldn't make money. I wasn't around Hogan, and I know I'm a Hogan fan, but what bothers me is this hypocrisy of these older guys now and these younger guys and the way they talk. They just ruin. They ruin what it is. And if you're a wrestling fan for the wrestling, can we just talk about wrestling? That's what I've been trying to do on my podcast, is talk about wrestling. But this stuff gets in the way and just kind of kills it, doesn't it? Anyway, that's what I think. Now, the reason I picked the Bubba Dudley thing is now he's been hanging out with Undertaker, right? And they've been talking about stuff. And they're on that new reality show where these young, it's the Tough Enough 2.0, the LGC or whatever they call it. And Undertaker's a judge, and Bubba's a judge, and Trish Stratus, and I think Booker T, and there might be another woman on there. And they played a teaser clip where all the young people come in. Now, the world is different. It's Netflix. They're not looking for wrestling aficionados, people with history of wrestling. In the clip they show where the guy tries to shake his hand and then cuts the promo, then gets disrespectful, and then everybody waits. Ooh, Undertaker called him back, and then they cut it off. I can't wait to watch the show to see how Undertaker gives it to him. That kid, because that's what he is, gave his approach to wrestling. I don't care who you are. I don't care that you won 28 titles. This is fake. I'm in the ring. I'm going to bounce around. I'll wear the same tights everybody else wears. You'll make music for me. You'll make me a star. I'll last 2 to 3 years. I'll move on. That's what it is now. The old guard is not the old guard. It's Netflix era. Triple H, and I put this in my last podcast, Triple H came out and said, I'm letting the young ones, the people who are currently on the roster, run the show. You're old. The old guard's gone. It is the Netflix era. There are multiple quotes I've shown that this is and Conan, I'm going back to what Conan said. This is modern times, therefore this is modern wrestling. Get over it. And he's right. You can reminisce, and I think pro wrestling at some point was a great thing. People were over. You didn't know about their personal lives. It was all about in-ring. It's not about in-ring anymore. And that's why I don't get, who cares if Hogan said he tried out for Metallica? Who cares if he said Andre was 700 pounds? Which brings me to my next clip. Stevie Richards, I don't agree with everything he does because him and this James Romero, who I thought was a really good podcast with Don Morocco. Why? Don Morocco talked about wrestling. Then they stopped doing that. And James got with other guys because they talked about everything but wrestling, the drama, the talking about it. And if anytime James Romero wants clicks because he's not making it, he does a show about Hogan's Lies, part 1 and 2. And now he's doing these shows on his own. I call them the Turtleneck Confessions. He wears a black turtleneck with a black background, and he talks like he knows it all. Hogan has got him bad. Oh my gosh. When Hogan made the comment on Pat McAfee that 11 billion people did some kind of social media impression on him, and that he was over more on Netflix than anyone else on the opening, which everybody on social media said Hogan was what everyone was talking about. So whether it was 11 billion or 1 million, Hogan was right. Not James. James went and researched Walmart and said he got more. There's no way he gets more than Walmart. Why, James? Because Hogan's got you. He doesn't even know who you are, and you are like Undertaker. It just bothers you so much. I don't know what the problem is with James and the Undertaker, but nonetheless, Hogan's smart enough. He knows what he's doing, and he is constantly in the news no matter what he says. And at the end of the day, he told everybody, "You don't like me? I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do." Moving on. He does collaborate with Stevie Richards, which I do like a lot of what Stevie Richards is doing. And he talks about a clip that the Godfather, when he turned into the Good Father, some problems that they had in the way that the Good Father from the Godfather was mad because he lost his merchandise sales and he didn't want to be a part of that whole group with Stevie Richards. And Stevie Richards talks about that a little bit. But first, I want to play the clip of what the Godfather said.
I heard in another interview you said that you took a lot of this out on Steven Richards or Stevie Richards.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did.
But I mean, no fault of his own.
None of his. I haven't seen him since then. But if I ever see him, I'm not a bully. Believe me, I'm not a bully, but I wasn't nice to him. And I took it out on, I was in a bad place. I was in a real bad place, man, and I blamed him.
With the amount of conventions you're doing, signings you're doing, appearances you're doing, your paths are going to cross eventually.
Hey, I'm sure he's heard the story about me. I think he was in the...
We can FaceTime him after if you want. I have his number.
He probably doesn't. He might have just thought I was a dickhead, I don't know. But I'm not normally, but I was mean to him. I remember one time Shane was doing an interview. I think it had to do with Adam Sandler was in it, and Shane was directing it, and Stevie Ray was supposed to smack me. And I told him, like, you smacked me. And, I told him what I was going to do to him if he smacked me. And so he wouldn't slap me. He wouldn't slap me. And Shane kept getting so mad at him, but he never slapped me, man. But it was stuff like that. I took it out on him, and it was not his fault. It was just I had to blame somebody, so I blamed Stevie.
Okay, so that's the clip I want to show, because now I'm going to end the show with a 19-minute clip from Stevie Richards and his response. I believe he's talking with James Romero, the guy that Hogan gets over on. Here's my thing. When you listen to Stevie Richards talk, first, if you listen to that clip, he doesn't apologize or go, yeah, that would be great. No, he's cool with who he is. Godfather, I don't care. Yeah, I was mean to him, and he knows that, and I was in a bad place. Where have we heard that? Almost every wrestler was in a bad place when they did bad things. I don't hear him going out on a limb wanting to apologize. Yeah, go ahead, put him on let's do it right now. I got to tell that man I am sorry. No. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because when it happened, the Godfather was part of the Undertaker clique. And Stevie Richards says in his clip, you didn't mess with Undertaker's boys. You just didn't do it because you knew they had clout. Now, let me ask you that. Is that not backstage politics? a lot of these podcast guys aren't in wrestling, meaning they don't do indie stuff. And they don't have to deal with promoters or backstage politics or guys with egos or guys that can make you or break you. It's probably worse on the indie circuit, from my experience. There's guys that can really mess you up and keep you down. And when you get in good with a guy, and when you're with somebody, they walk on water. So I can only imagine at that. And you had Undertaker, who was the judge, jury, and the guy who convicted you from wrestler's court, and he had his small group. But see, Undertaker's smart. He didn't brag about it. Everybody's going, wow, Undertaker's talking now. Yeah, he kept his mouth shut his entire career. He knows it's over now. So now he does a podcast and he tells stories. He's guarded with his stories. And he's really good at judging people and telling, who he likes, who he doesn't like, who sucks, who doesn't suck. And now he's a religious guy, but he keeps that to his vest. However, if he is a religious guy, you think he'd reach out and pull these people up. But I digress. Here's my thing. Stevie Richard talks about he was in a no man's land. HBK did the same thing to him. And now Godfather didn't want to do that. And Stevie had to keep his mouth shut, because if he did do something, hey, Undertaker, Stevie Richards is causing problems. All right, let's do wrestler's court, or let's do this. Or we can squeeze him out, which Stevie Richards ended up getting squeezed out anyway and was let go. So this is the hypocrisy I'm talking about. So I'm going to show you the clip here, where in detail Stevie Richards talks about the clip that I just showed you with the Godfather, and you'll probably see a repeat of it. And him and this James guy they go back and forth and they talk about it. But you got to listen. See, there's a lot of wrestlers out there that talk about The Undertaker, but sometimes they don't talk about him directly. They talk about the guys around The Undertaker, and they say, this is what they say. They say that you didn't want to make them mad because they would go back and tell The Undertaker, or you knew, it was known, there with Undertaker, right? Because the infamous picture of his boys in the back of the plane, in the back of the bus, Undertaker had his minions literally go out and do his bidding. And now, and I'm going to give them props. They are still not airing their grievances and what they know. As you can see there, Godfather, he has no interest in meeting up with Stevie Richards and apologizing for that. To him, that's wrestling. That was back then. That happened backstage. Sorry, dude. I thought that was kind of funny that you kind of did what I told you to do, which was keep your mouth shut and stay away from me. Stevie Richards knowing you don't want to make Undertaker mad. Undertaker was in Vince's back pocket, just like HBK was. Talk about backstage politics. Good gravy. It's just the hypocrisy just gets me. So with that being said, I appreciate you listening to the old man's ramblings. I had other things I want to talk about. We can always get to those later. I just wanted to review some hypocrisy that's going on now. And I'm just telling you, these guys that think they're untouchable and they like ragging on other people, it's going to come. They're next. The current fan. Look at Yeet guy, the Uso who won the Royal Rumble. They loved him. And then he won. And now they don't. And now it's a back and forth making fun of and because we know it's Netflix era TV, and because we know it's storylines, just like the Cody Rhodes piece, fans are going to get involved and try to control the storyline and the scenario. That's the problem with Netflix era. Triple H has exposed the entire business of it's TV. And I'm okay with that now because it is fake. Okay? Guys like to tell you, well, I still take the bumps. Yeah, okay, whatever. But it's not like it used to be. It's never going to be like it used to be. It's never going to evoke the emotions like it used to be. It's made to sell merchandise. It's made for little kids. It's made for a certain fan group. And the internet marks like your James Marrero podcasts and stuff, who are actually helping kill the business, whatever's left of it, which really there's nothing left of it, because they want to talk about the personal stuff. They're the dirt sheets. They're the People magazine. They're the podcasts that talk about Hollywood. Pull out a podcast where, please walk me through this match. This was an awesome match. No, let me tell you what happened behind the scenes. And I guess today I'm kind of falling into that. So there you go. The theme of hypocrisy matches everything. I enjoy, if you go back and listen to any of my previous podcasts, I like talking about the Butch Reed JYD feud, the excellence of Barry Windham, some of these great matches, stunning Steve Austin and Ricky Steamboat. We should be talking about that because that's what we have left are memories, and luckily we have video of that. The Netflix era is a totally different mindset. It's made for the modern fan, which is, who of the old guys do we want to get rid of? We don't care if you replicate old matches, gear and whatever, because we don't know those. And then you've got the new style of wrestler that's coming in that doesn't know jack. All they're going to know at some point, it's going to be people born in 2015 when that started. And their references is going to be Kevin Owens ripping people off, but they think that's the originality of Kevin Owens or CM Punk. So nonetheless, I digress. I do apologize. I'm going to finish with the Stevie Richards clip with James Romero here. Got a lot off my chest. I feel so much better. We'll be hitting you up soon. Hey, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. God is good, and I will see you at the matches.
Godfather being turned into the good father made the right to censor what it was.
Here's the one that really, because as a fan, I'm 13 years old. I love The Godfather because of everything he brought. And what I'm saying is, he brought all the women, he brought the fun, he brought the party to every single show. He had a great spot on the card. He loved being The Godfather because it matched his personality. You might disagree with his personality slightly, but at times. But anyway, The Godfather gets drafted in. So we believe that it's a very clever mechanism to get the most raunchy characters off TV while they basically protest about it at the same time. It's a very, very clever way that right to censor was used by the WWF. And obviously Val Venus at the same time. He'd already given up the adult film star character.
But he was known for it no matter what. He needed another gimmick to erase that even further. People still think of him that way, so we needed to switch both of them up.
Well, he's another one with like.
Well, I say we. I had nothing to do with it. By the way, that's part of the one you're probably going to get into. I had nothing to do with this. I didn't even know if I was going to be there much longer.
Well, with Val, he becomes, Val, and then we'll talk about Val in a minute anyway. But with Godfather, he makes it known he's not happy about, in real life, joining the right to censor. He becomes the good father. And with Chris Van Vliet, he makes mention of the fact that basically I was not nice to Stevie. I was unhappy with my spot. I was unhappy with the creative direction. And elsewhere, he also says that he was preparing to quit over this. He told The Undertaker that he was preparing to quit. And apparently, in another interview, he said that he and Bull Buchanan were made tag team champions in an effort to keep him with the company longer. That's how strongly he felt, and that's how much he was not enjoying the role. So, The Godfather, I suppose, thoughts about The Godfather before he joins Right to Censor, and then issues dealing with him when he's forced to join the group.
First of all, unique personalities are needed in professional wrestling, whether you care to mesh or jive with the personality, which I had no problems with him as the Godfather before that. Of course, I wasn't in the Right to Censor, and then all the other stuff didn't happen. Now, I'm going to take a completely different perspective on this. Obviously, I was made well aware by actions, looks, words, inflection, every hint in the book without actually saying, I do not want to be part of this group. I do not want to be a part of anything you have to do. It was seemingly at the time, it was a very personal type of thing. And I think in that interview with Chris Van Vliet, that's what he said. He took it out on me. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't invent the right to censor, and it was on Vince. He said in the interview he had to blame somebody, and it was me. Now, I'm going to take this perspective from a purely business standpoint. Imagine if you're one of the biggest baby faces in the company, where people have argued with me, no, he wasn't. Yes, he was. A perennial baby face with the same exact spot on the card, with almost the same predictable thing that people would never get tired of seeing week in and week out. That's one of the most over baby face. He didn't need to evolve. Just every he mentioned the town, might mention the local strip club, brought out the local girls from that strip club, and that's it. Formula for success. Now, from a business standpoint, and here's what I talked about before, as a baby face, you have an entire multiple stream of income potential, not just from getting booked, which obviously if you're over as a babyface, you're getting booked on TVs, house shows, live events, and pay-per-views. You're getting booked. You're automatically making more money when you're figured in to a spot. By the way, he doesn't even have to wrestle. So on a TV spot or a pay-per-view or even a house show, it doesn't eat up a ton of time on your show. And you can do it each and every week. And people will look forward to it. And once again, just like with Meanie, you need to have some fun. And I'm sorry I took that fun away from you, James. You need to have some fun and have some comic relief and just not take it so seriously, at least for a few minutes. Now, on the side of the business standpoint, where outside of the bookings, outside of being featured, because he was featured as a heel, he was the most, if I dare say, Val was one thing. Godfather being turned into the good father made the right to censor what it was. If I didn't convert him, quote, because I didn't do it, don't blame me. If he wasn't converted, it would not have the power nor the impact on the WWE or WWF at the time if he didn't. We would just be shouting, we'd be an angry old man shouting at the clouds. But turning the most over sexualized babyface, let's call it, into a Bible thumping Jehovah's Witness or Mormon is what made it. So he was the most important part of the right to censor, in my opinion. But getting back to the business standpoint and the money that the right to censor probably cost this guy, merchandise. He was in some video games, but you didn't know that was going to happen. Action figures, t-shirts, whatever Ho Train stuff they sold, he had to be in the top 5 merch sellers. So it pained the company, I bet, too, to take a loss that way, to take one of their most popular baby faces and remove all the merchandise and remove all the extra money that the company and Godfather would make. So you have a mortgage, you have a car payment, you have bills to pay. I don't know if he has kids. He might have been married. I'm not familiar with his personal life, but he has financial responsibilities that now your pay is potentially cut, maybe on a good month or a good year, cut in half. Who are you going to take it out on? Can't take it out on Vince McMahon. So I think he was just projecting his anger, frustration, the financial hit he took. And he was basically paired up, or we were joined at the hip for the whole right to censor stuff until the end. So I'm right there. I'm right next to him here. What are you going to do? So I understand. Was it a fun time? No. Life was miserable. Life sucked. The job sucked. Being in the locker room sucked because it wasn't just him. The people that were connected to him and really good friends were also making passing remarks and stuff. You know how wrestling is. It's a high school cafeteria. So that's fine. I understand. And in my mind, and did it hurt? Of course it did. It immensely hurt me. Who wants to be disliked at the time? I'm sure I gave reasons here and there throughout my career, but who wants to be disliked for something that is no fault of your own? And there was nothing at the time, even if I was absolutely aware of it, or he told me, I don't want to be here and it's your fault, I'm losing money, or he never said any of those things. It was a very quiet heat, but I knew it. And what could I have said to him to make it better? Nothing. So it probably was the I don't know, the less stressful part. It was just the quiet heat throughout the entire year.
It was, we'll go back to the creator in a second. It was hard for me as a fan to sort of accept that. There was such a dissonance between what he was and what he became within the space of like probably 3 days, probably between like Raw and SmackDown. I always wonder that, and obviously we're just rebooking the past that can't happen, but I always wonder what if like you were the antagonist and he was the protagonist throughout this kind of thing? Because it would have elevated Godfather at the same time. I don't know, but I mean, you're of the opinion that no, Godfather joining made the right censor more important.
Well, we did dip in and out where, like when we put Victoria through the table, I was before Victoria and Stevie on Stevie Night Heat. So that's funny how a small world. But he was hesitating, and then he would say, let me do it. But then there was parts like in that Wrestling Bios documentary. By the way, that guy, his editing skills, please teach me your editing skills. When we, when we closed the APA office down, and Godfather was tempted to smoke the cigar. I love that. Why is it always like, it's literally, you can see now there's a bit of Stockholm syndrome. There's brainwashing involved. There's that cult. I wanted that. I wanted Val to be like walking by a magazine stand and we see like an adult magazine and he kind of gravitates toward. I wanted all that. That's always good to mix it up and if we cheer even more from him, he's going to turn back into the Godfather. That was but they wanted that to be very, very few and far between. They were pretty stringent on, once again, PTC. If you show any inkling of the character consistently, they're probably going to protest once again because they know you're bringing them back. So they had to be very careful.
Speaking of coming back, The Godfather and actually Val Venus at the same event, but we'll talk about Val, as I say, shortly. Royal Rumble 2002, which for me is a dark pay-per-view because it was the very first one that actually was a pay-per-view in this country. And then they started bringing in the pay because they were all free. They were on Sky Sports, premium subscription thing, but they were all free for us. And then they started bringing the Royal Rumble and very slowly over the next few years making them all pay-per-views. He's brought back, and then he's gone legit in 2002, quote unquote. He's now an escort instead of a pimp. I guess not an escort, but he runs an escort agency. It was never the same, and I always find that quite weird. How just that tiny little just change in character that now he's legit, and it just never had quite the same sting to it. It never like hit quite as hard. But I also think maybe it was 2002, the invasion had happened, and it more or less just killed everyone. A third of the people stopped watching WWF programming across that 6 months as well. So maybe it was just.
Isn't it funny that the final dream of WCW versus WWE is about to happen, and it was like the biggest flop ever in wrestling history?
Awful. I hated it. But anyway, as I say, it's not about me. There's a couple of things about The Godfather that I want to bring up to you, as well as Victoria, I guess, as well. So he talks on the Chris Van Vliet clip about a slap story.
I heard in another interview you said that you took a lot of this out on Steven Richards or Stevie Richards.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did.
But I mean, no fault of his own.
None of his. I haven't seen him since then. But if I ever see him, I'm not a bully. Believe me, I'm not a bully, but I wasn't nice to him. And I took it out on, I was in a bad place. I was in a real bad place, man. And I blamed him.
With the amount of conventions you're doing, signings you're doing, appearances you're doing, your paths are going to cross eventually.
Hey, I'm sure he's heard the story about me. I think he was in the...
We can FaceTime him after if you want. I have his number.
He probably doesn't. He might have just thought I was a dickhead, I don't know. But I'm not normally, but I was mean to him. I remember one time Shane was doing an interview. I think it had to do with Adam Sandler was in it, and Shane was directing it, and Stevie Ray was supposed to smack me. And I told him, you smacked me. And, I told him what I was going to do to him if he smacked me. And so he wouldn't slap me. He wouldn't slap me. And Shane kept getting so mad at him, but he never slapped me, man. But it was stuff like that. I took it out on him, and it was not his fault. It was just, I had to blame somebody, so I blamed Stevie.
Well, we did a backstage pre-tape with Adam Sandler with the Little Nicky movie where he played the devil. And we were cutting apart. Adam Sandler, he obviously didn't want to be there. I could tell. I didn't want to be there either. And Godfather, nobody wanted to be there. So it was just really, it's hard to deal with celebrities that aren't figured. Today it's easy because celebrities, they appreciate wrestling, the entertainment and respect. You see what Logan Paul and other people do, but then you got the occasional Jeremy Piven with Summerfest, which is awesome. He didn't want to be there. He's kind of doing whatever, promoting the movie. I'm trying to play my character. I don't know exactly what the provocation was for me to turn to Godfather or Goodfather at that time and give him a slap. It was directed and produced by Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon somehow was the agent for this in some way. I don't know how, but Shane did get, because Godfather pulled me aside, or he just turned back to them and looked right at me and he said, don't you hit me, or we're going to fight, or I'm going to hurt you or do whatever. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? I don't want to slap anybody anyway really hard. I don't like that because I've had my ears cupped a lot and had eardrums broken from like slaps that are sloppy. But Charles is a huge dude. Even my whole hand would probably be like right here. So he's a big dude. So I was doing it and I was trying to say to Shane, which was right. I mean, honestly, I'm like, okay, this guy wants to fight me. I'm being told, Shane's telling me to slap him. He's telling me not to. If I say he doesn't want me to slap him, now I'm stooging him off. If I tell the Godfather, well, Shane told me to slap, now I'm like in the middle. This encapsulates professional wrestling and politics and potential heat that you can't please anyone. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. And you're damned if you do it real lightly. So probably, I guess, 3 takes of doing it. And then Shane got so mad, he just kind of walked away. And it was a take, and that was it. And I remember just kind of walking away. My head was held down. And all I kept saying to myself was like, what have I ever done to this guy? What did I ever do to this guy? I kind of understood it, but you have to understand, looking at it years down the road with a different set of eyes, that's why I gave the answer I did today. But the answers I had back then were nil. Walking around all day, wonder why everybody is so pissed off. And people that have nothing to do with them but might be connected, like, you're the person costing Godfather all this money. And I probably, if I was aware of it, this is the whole thing too, I probably would have said something and got 10 times more heat. Like, I probably would have said to Godfather, why are you mad at me? Vince is the one. I didn't want to cut my hair, which right then, you're mouthing off, you're talking back, you're disrespect. It could be any bunch of different ways where you get, and once I realized too, that early on, as I'm trying to remember it, that I'm like, okay, well, I'm smart enough to know politically that Godfather is tight and in a crew, whatever their name was at the time, with Undertaker, which means I'm instantly buried. If Godfather is balking at this, and even Val is starting to balk at this, and nobody is giving a counterpoint that this is a good thing, they'll at least keep you here or whatever. I don't know which way they would have convinced them of that outside of giving them the tag title run and giving them more money on house shows, pay-per-views, stuff like that. But I did walk around for many, many years thinking to myself, what did I do wrong? How did I handle this wrong? Why does this guy hate me? Why does this guy hate me? Why are they not trying to do business? Why are they not selling? It was everything. Totally low point in my career. And that, if it's a segue, that kind of like led me to kind of feel sorry for myself and then go into the severe weight gain.
We never actually talked about the weight gain. We'll talk about it in just a second after this. Just reacting once more to the Godfather clip. Does it sort of relax you a bit more? Does it make you happy that obviously, Charles is showing, quite a lot of contrition? He doesn't actually get to the point where he says, I'd love to shake his hand and apologize, but that's basically what he's saying. So when you see that and you sort of realize, oh, well, it wasn't me, it was everything surrounding the character. I mean, how did you take that?
I mean, I didn't walk around in 2022, 23, 24 wondering what the guy, whatever, I saw the interview and it gave perspective and clarity and answered questions. But at the same time, I mean, maybe it's one of those things where, he said all those things, but, didn't want to talk to me or shake my hand or do whatever. And that's fine. He doesn't need to apologize for anything. He had his very valid reasons, just wasn't clued into what those valid reasons were. Or maybe it's just, dude, in the wrestling business, I don't fit in. I'm not one of them. They've told me and showed me every day during my 31 years in the business, I do not belong in it. I do not fit in. I'm different. And that's fine, because being different and not fitting in will hopefully lead to this chapter and beyond of success outside of wrestling. Also, never fitting in always made me want to do more, work harder, keep myself hyper accountable after the weight loss. But I don't have any answers for that. I mean, if I saw the guy at a convention and he came up and we started talking, that would be fine. I'm not going to I don't hold any ill will to him. The only thing was that it became, in my opinion, at one point, which most wrestling is with backstage politics and heat and locker room stuff, just completely counterproductive and unnecessary to a point of whatever. But compared to how some people got hazed and some people got bullied, him leaving me alone and giving me silent heat, it's probably the better part of it. So I give him that. He didn't try to outwardly try to hurt me physically. He didn't outwardly try to do things to me outside the ring. He just stayed away from me and didn't want to have anything to do with me, which is fine.
Cameras,